Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about why today's headlines are important for your success at work. My name is Peter Raybar. I'm your first call on legal issues.
And I'm Laura Brownstein, and I should be your first call on anything related to comms or content. How you doing?
I'm sad.
Why?
The World Cup is ending. There's only
I
three
really
more
thought you were
games
gonna be
left.
like, war. What is it good for?
Oh, yeah. Well, so, I didn't want to go heavy
Focus on
right.
the important things, Peter.
Yeah. I didn't want to go heavy right in the first minute of the podcast.
When is the
but
World Cup ending?
Sunday. So we're
You saw
recording.
Global Citizen is doing the halftime show with all these awesome people.
Yeah, including Justin Bieber, who you refused to go out and meet in Sag Harbor this past
He
weekend.
was not looking for me. He was not like,
How do you know
I
that?
want to talk about comms and content with Laura. No.
How do you know? He may be a listener for all we know.
Justin, call us.
Yeah. If you want to come on, we'll have you. Maybe a short segment.
You don't ask before you make offers like that? What the hell?
Yeah.
All right.
I think Biebs gets the auto invite if he wants to come on. I think that's fair.
Honestly, Haley, you gorgeous business mogul, you should come on. Which of these two people exited a company successfully?
It's true.
Haley.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right. So what are we going
All
to
right,
talk about today,
stop.
other
There's
than
a lot.
Justin Bieber?
There is a lot of good stuff to talk about. We are going to be someplace where other things are talked about other than the World Cup, in addition to the World Cup. Because it is a beautiful thing, and it's so nice how happy it's made everyone.
Right.
Okay, we're going to talk about Meta in hot water again related to AI. We're going to talk about Apple suing OpenAI, Trump versus law firms part 8, and what the heck is going on with the 1776 fund, the slush fund that was supposed to be created to combat the weaponization of the Justice Department. Todd Blanche has been asked about it repeatedly today, Wednesday, during his confirmation hearings. And we are...
Let me guess, he refused to answer the question?
No, it's more... No, it was crazy. Like, they basically... Someone suggested, should we do, like, a joint vote in Congress to say it's null and void? Because they got him to admit that it is still a binding resolution. And he basically was like, no, I'm not going to agree to that.
Seems like a great guy.
Set questioning from Senator John Cornyn, who, as everybody remembers, got basically set loose against Trump once he lost his primary due to President Trump's intervention. So now he might be a lame duck in Congress in several ways, but not in this way.
Exciting.
Very interesting.
Exciting.
Yes. But let's talk about the mess with Meta. This is fascinating. A group of employees are contending that AI was used to make determinations around layoffs, and it disproportionately laid off people with disabilities or medical leave, which I think it's so fascinating because I wonder, maybe it happened, but it became the AI's idea. Like, how do we know it was actually programmed to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I've been involved in a lot of layoffs, on both sides, advising companies on how to do layoffs, helping managers make selections, and of course representing employees against companies that they were laid off from, including Meta. And one of the things that we've talked about regarding Meta and everybody's been talking about is how much they've been trying to force their employees to use AI in their day-to-day. And now they're sort of backing off from it in the past couple of weeks. And then, boom, we get this story that says there's a lawsuit. Now, it's a lawsuit with claims. It doesn't mean it actually happened. It just means these are the claims, and the lawsuit will determine whether it happened or not. Meta denies everything. But the plaintiffs are saying, hey, we were laid off. We either had disabilities or medical leave, and they used AI to do the layoffs, and AI chose us because of these reasons. Now, did someone first of all, I will just say as a lawyer, I don't know why you would be using AI to make selections in a...
pull.
layoff situation
They could very
where,
easily use AI. Please pull all the employees that got below a certain amount lattice score on their last review.
no, I mean, you could do that with just like basic sorting features or whatever. But what I was going to say, the full thing is that I don't know why you would use it with a data set that includes medical information, because medical information should never be considered in a layoff. The law says you can't make these
That's a great point,
selections
Peter.
based on any protected characteristic,
Even if
right?
the AI went rogue, why was the employer including that information in the data
Right.
set? First
So
place?
did someone
So
in
interesting.
HR give it access to this information? If they did, that's a major problem. That should not have happened, right?
You're right,
And so
Peter.
just like,
really shined a light, illuminated that issue for me.
yeah, thanks. That's what I'm here for.
That's
First
great.
call on legal issues. so just want to live up to that standard.
So far today.
But anyone involved in a layoff, you probably heard the speech from your lawyer or HR person. You can't decide based on sex, gender, age, religion, disability, medical leave, pregnancy status, like there's a whole list of things you can't decide on. So why, if you're using AI to cull the list, let's say, based on permissible factors, so permissible factors would be job function, job performance, attendance. Yeah, again, attendance as long as it's not sick leave, being considered. So did they include a data set that the AI should not have seen?
Interesting.
That'll be the question.
Let's stay tuned.
So the
Be
lawsuit.
careful when you're doing this at your company, and
Yeah.
also be aware if you've been laid off that this is. Just be aware.
Right. I mean, there is no way it should just have unfettered access to HR files, which would contain medical information, disability information, etc. And as we talked about a long time ago, we haven't talked about it in a while, but these AI models are generally pretty discriminatory against age, against these conditions. So, yeah, so no surprise this is what happened here. No surprise that it happened at Meta. Another good, lesson in reviewing the output from any model you're using. So here again, whatever the AI did, whatever it was based on, humans should have been double checking, like, have any of these people been on leave recently, or any of them on leave now?
Humans
And then
always have to be the backstop.
right.
And it has to be built that way.
And by the way, that could be the defense. Meta could come forward and say, yes, we laid off people who were on medical leave, but not because they were on medical leave, because they were poor performers or their job was eliminated. And we eliminated 10 other people who were not on medical leave who had that same job. So it's a great headline. And certainly, with everyone's interest in AI, it's a exceptional headline.
Fascinating.
But it may or may not be true.
I look forward
We'll
to
see.
watching this play out. We will definitely talk about it again.
Yeah.
I'm also totally fascinated by Apple's suit. Apple's suit against OpenAI. They used to be in business together. ChatGPT was baked into Apple's operating system, the iOS system, in 2024. But now Apple is suing OpenAI, saying they did directed poaching to specifically poach information from Apple to bring to OpenAI. Yes?
Yeah, essentially, not only did they hire Apple employees, no problem with that, especially in California where there's no non-competes, but that someone at OpenAI, again, these are allegations in a lawsuit. OpenAI denies everything so far.
Right.
We haven't seen their filing yet, but basically this lawsuit is saying that an OpenAI an employee at OpenAI directed these Apple employees to bring certain Apple information with them, and that they
put out, would tell employees who were coming from Apple to OpenAI how to get out of the immediate exiting that happens. That should happen if you are going to a competitor like that.
Right. So, I mean, this is a particular interest to me because I advise employees on these situations all the time. I've, usually tried to give employees advice on what to take and not take when they leave a job. But also if they happen to take something, usually inadvertently, we work to get them out of that mess because it's obviously very sensitive. And here,
I'll say this is not something that companies do a good job educating employees about at all. There was a company I worked at that had a mass layoff, and it was a lot of people's first job, and they had no idea that they were not supposed to forward documents
right.
to themselves. They literally had no idea. It was their first job out of college. What did they know? And then got in all that, lost their severance, got in trouble with lawyers, and I still think the company did not do a good job making sure that was clear in due time, in like enough time.
Well, that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about what you should do and not do when you leave a job, right?
Great. Let's talk.
And so,
One other point before we get into that
yeah.
nitty gritty. Some of this, I think, is a little, I don't know, specious because we're not in severance. You can't forget what you've learned during a certain job. So if while editing Self magazine, I learned that cover lines that offer solutions do well. When I left Condé Nast to go to Hearst, I still remembered that cover lines that offer solutions do well. Like I couldn't extract that from my brain.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. And that's a standard part of like every letter I see on this is like, obviously you can't unlearn something you know, but you shouldn't use direct information. But this lawsuit alleges far beyond that. I mean, there are text messages and chats cited in this complaint that
Did
say...
you see that there was somebody at OpenAI was like, I can totally get into their storage, lol.
Right. That was like, here's how you do it. Here's what you should take. I mean, those are the allegations. And so the allegations are about actual documents and data sets that belong to Apple. It wasn't just about what's in people's minds. But here's my advice generally to anyone leaving, especially if you're going to a competitor. But always, don't take anything with you. Frankly, zero. Nothing that is created.
Definitely nothing with a paper or digital trail.
Well, everything has a paper or digital trail. So let's just say that. Like everything could be traced on your work computer. Period. Like so, nothing should be taken.
When people, I've never done this, of course, but I've heard about people like taking pictures of documents that they want to retain.
I don't even think that's a good idea. So what because even that's traceable because your phone is attached to an iCloud account that could be So I have a couple pieces of practical advice. So if you have, personal documents on a work computer, which if you've ever talked to me, this is not something you should ever have, but most people seem to have them. Don't try and download them yourself. Put them all in a folder, label the folder personal and leave it on your desktop. Leave it on your computer desktop. And when you leave, you ask HR or whoever your manager, IT, whoever you're working with, look, I have a folder of personal documents on my desktop. I'd like that downloaded onto a site or a stick, and I'd like my contacts. Okay, those are things you're entitled to take. If there are work documents that you've worked on that you think you have some right to, now remember everything you create at work is theirs. But if you want permission,
negotiate differently.
Yeah, some people negotiate differently. I work with traders who bring over models and stuff, and we have a lot of negotiations about that. But let's say it's just something you're really proud of that you worked on and you don't think is like a competitive issue, but you want to have it. Ask permission. Just say, I would like to take this file with me. It's important to me. I think I did 95% of it, whatever. Ask permission.
Also,
you'll either get it or not.
Is a publicly available document, but you would like to just have the electronic file,
right?
It's worth asking. This is, once a magazine has been published, if you just want the PDF to be able to transfer over, they'll probably say yes, because it's already out there. Yes, many of my examples go back to writing or editing magazines. But
no, but I mean, I deal with that issue all the time. I mean, it's people are like, I wrote some report, it was then published, but I would just like the original file. Like, that's fine. Or I wrote a pitch. We've given it to 10 different people. Everybody knows what the pitch is, but it was like very useful to me, maybe some element of how it was structured or whatever. So just ask permission. If it's truly not controversial, you'll get it.
It's good advice.
So that's like when you're leaving. Now, I will say there's one thing you could do at the outset that is also very important that I think almost no one ever does.
Yes.
But I think is really important in this day and age. So if your device is a Apple device, whether it is a phone or a computer or an iPad. When you connect it to iCloud, do not connect your work device to your personal iCloud. Create a new address or connect it to your work address. Create a new iCloud account with your work address for that purpose.
Yeah.
And that is super important because I've been involved in certain situations where people have done exactly what you said, taking pictures of documents. They were logged in on their personal iCloud. It got synced back into their personal iCloud. And the employer said, I want to look at their whole personal iCloud. And there was really no defense against that because that's what was used to log in to the work device.
You know what? That is great advice.
So
that's great advice.
Send in your checks. I'll take the contributions, for that valuable advice that I just gave everyone.
That was really good advice, Peter. All right, that's such an interesting issue. And if people have more questions about that, ask. And also, one of the things in the layoff situation I was talking about that was a problem was that so many employees knew that they were going to be laid off for about a month and a half. There was between when they knew they were being laid off and laid off was a month and a half.
Right.
It's hard to not start messing around. Bad.
It is really hard. I talk to a lot of people who are telling me that they're sending stuff, and I'm like, just stop immediately. Don't do it. And these are things that employers, get notifications about, and it just sets off alarm bells. You may be doing something totally innocently, but it would potentially take weeks to unwind, which could delay severance payments, could lead to you incurring legal fees to deal with it. You also, if you get caught in one of these situations, you're going to have to pay for a forensic expert to,
God, you're giving me anxiety.
Just deal with your data.
Yeah, you should. Topic. You're giving me anxiety.
No, you should you should see the anxiety that people in these situations deal with. It's really intrusive and terrible.
Why is Trump trying again to sue law firms? What's happening with the law firms in Trump?
So, as we know, at the beginning of this administration, there were executive orders, issued against certain law firms, Paul Weiss, others. 9 of them capitulated immediately, including Paul Weiss, and signed settlements with the government. And the bunch fought. All the ones that fought won. But recently, within the last month, the American Bar Association filed a lawsuit on behalf of all law firms against the administration, saying they shouldn't be able to issue these executive orders. They're just being used to harass law firms. They're being used to prevent law firms from taking on cases that the government's bringing. And now, in the course of discovery in this case, and one of the things the ABA asked for was text messages and other chats between Boris Epshteyn and Steve Bannon on how the government should handle these negotiations with the law firms.
Who's Boris Epshteyn?
He's Trump's personal lawyer, who's also has some sort of government role and is directing a lot of these vindictive cases.
When Todd Blanche was having his hearing, someone said to him, one of the questions was, are you friends with the president? He was like, well, I'm his lawyer, ex-lawyer.
Right.
It was like, oh, buddy.
Yeah, so he led the negotiations with the law firms, and so the ABA sought, the discovery of these chats, and now the government has turned around and said, okay, well, now we want discovery from all the law firms, and we want to depose all the law firm leaders about, their role in these settlements. And so now it's really bringing all of this back into the light. And the law firms that settled, they obviously don't want to deal with this again. No. Their goal was to put this behind them and move on.
I'm confused. Is this the administration trying to continue to persecute the law firms, or the opposite?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is pressure the law firms to then pressure the ABA to drop the case. That's I think what they're trying to do. So by subpoenaing all these depositions of these law firm leaders. So this is
thwarting the law firms' attempts to fight back, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
That's what they're trying to do. Make it really ugly, put some pressure on, force them to pressure the ABA to drop the lawsuit. Now, I would say under normal circumstances, law firms aren't going to do that, but these are firms that are already capitulated, so who knows? Maybe they will.
Who knows?
But there's a lot of other law firms who didn't, so we'll see what happens. But again, this whole very ugly situation has come back into the light. And frankly, the administration should not be interfering with law firms at all. That's period.
Speaking of things we did not mention at the beginning that the government should not be interfering with, can we talk about the case against these Times reporters for writing about the issues with the new Air Force One?
Well, it's not a case yet. Right now, it's subpoenas.
Yes.
And there were reports over the weekend or over last week when the president mysteriously switched airplanes from his new Qatari gifted airplane to the old Air Force One for the NATO conference, about why that was happening. And the reports were that it was happening because the new plane didn't have countermeasures, didn't have appropriate communication channel security.
Might have been vetted before takeoff.
Yeah, right. And because he was flying, internationally, there were concerns about his safety, and of course there were these reports about death threats and whatever from Iran. And so a couple outlets reported this, and then subpoenas were issued by the Department of Justice against all the reporters who published this,
ostensibly to find out who leaked
right,
to them.
Right. And so, there's normally a very rigorous process, including determining there's no other way to get the information than to subpoena the reporters, and balancing of national security interests versus freedom of press interests. To believe that all of that happened within 24 hours is very hard to believe. Also, reports are that the FBI director, Kash Patel, was leading the subpoena effort, not anyone from the DOJ. That's also very unusual.
Very unusual, isn't it?
So and the government's just saying, we don't care about the reporters, we only care about the sources. But what attempts, they're going to be challenged, the subpoenas, and then the government's going to have to answer the question of, well, what attempts did you make to find out the sources? Did you go through communications leaving the government? What did you do? That'll be an interesting question. We'll see how
the
they answer
Times
that.
is not holding back, fighting back against it, which I'm happy to
No,
see.
the Times never does. They fight everything. They have to. And so, same with the other major outlets, the Wall Street Journal, et cetera. They're they're definitely gonna do that. It's not even a question.
Yeah. Back to another thing with Todd Blanche. Can you explain what happened with the judge that not only said the slush fund, the 1776 fund, couldn't happen, but remanded Blanche and another attorney over to an ABA investigation? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, this is I think the most fun decision of the week, frankly.
Yeah.
And this goes to the IRS slush fund, the
Calling it the 1776.
IRS settlement and the 1776 fund. So if you remember, this was a case that was brought by the president against the IRS.
Yes.
And
meaning he wants your tax dollars, Americans.
Right.
Remember that.
And there was a
It's
$10 million.
Like you're working and you're like, God, I'm glad some of these pennies are going to help Donald Trump's bottom line. Oh my God, go on.
Right. This was a case filed because there was a leak, and there is someone in jail who worked for Booz Hamilton, a government contractor, who leaked the president's tax records and the tax records of others. He's in jail. He was convicted. The president then filed, over 2 years later, a lawsuit alleging $10 billion in damages from this leak. And not much, it was interesting, nothing really happened in the case other than the judge asked the attorneys to put in submissions about whether it could actually be a case, because the president ostensibly controlled both sides of the case. So there's no controversy, right? And there were, at the time, allegedly memos.
Both of these departments report up to him.
Yeah, the IRS reports to him, the DOJ reports to him. We know through recent Supreme Court cases that he has strengthened his power over agencies like the IRS. And there was dissent within the DOJ, in fact, that was reported that there wasn't a case and that this should not have been brought, and that was a major problem. And there was also a major statute of limitations issue. There was a 2-year filing requirement. This was filed after 2 years. So there were issues that before any response to the judge's request were filed, the case was voluntarily dismissed by the DOJ. And then a settlement agreement was announced of the case, which not only set up this slush fund that everyone's talking about, which was later killed, but said that the president and his family, his entire family, could not be have no further liability for any IRS like investigations. Like everything was closed and they could go on their way.
That is the most insane thing in the world. That basically, it's like a get out of jail free card for his entire family for any tax issues ever.
Right, exactly. And
unbelievable.
And a bunch of former government officials and other nonprofits related to tax, including a former IRS commissioner, filed this motion and said, Judge, you shouldn't accept this dismissal. And you should void the settlement offer, and you should sanction these attorneys because there was never a case to begin with. Like, you can't settle a case and order relief if there was no case. Okay.
Yes.
And so this order, the judge took the briefs and basically said there was no case. Now, the judge didn't void the settlement agreement because there could be settlement agreements between two parties before a case is ever filed. So that's a different question. I'm sure that will be litigated too. But the judge did refer all the president's lawyers to state bar associations for disciplinary proceedings because she basically said this was self-dealing. This was not above board. This was self-dealing. These lawyers engaged in improper actions and they perpetrated a fraud on the court.
And what job Todd Blanche is trying to get?
Well, he's, I think, trying to become the attorney general.
And yet, he's before the Bar Association now for malfeasance, basically.
I mean, he'll just say
it's
political. He'll just say it's political. That's the answer always. It's just political. But it's not just Blanche. There's a lawyer in Florida who's been filing all these lawsuits for the president. He's been referred as well. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I mean, more than anything, there was a major statute of limitations issue. I mean, there should never been a case. There should never have been a settlement agreement. There's no reason why third parties who had nothing to do with the case should have been awarded any taxpayer money, and there's no reason why the family should have been absolved of anything. Like other people settled their cases involving this leak for apologies. So maybe someone should just apologize and we can move on.
Or no, there's nothing to apologize for.
No, I mean the breach should not have happened. Let's say it. Yeah, the breach. But that guy's in jail.
Right.
I mean, so that's
okay.
that.
You have a question from a reader, listener, viewer.
I do. And it's one I've heard a couple times this summer.
And it's one I've heard from a couple kids too. So
good. All right. Well, I'd love to hear what you've told them. But the question is, what do I do if I'm bored during my internship?
So I have heard this as well. I think kids are so surprised when they aren't kind of being given like handheld through tasks that they just sort of get lost and don't know what to do, and thus then they're bored because too many internship programs don't have the resources to have a robust program. They're just kind of like, go do some of that thing, and kids are less able to run with stuff these days, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, some
part
kids,
of it is
least.
The lack of resources going to the internship programs.
But
and
but you didn't answer the question. What should they do if that's the case? What
they
should they do?
should figure out a way to be productive. Figure out a way.
What are some ways?
Okay, so they should think about who is doing work that they're interested in at wherever their internship is, or who looks like they're swamped, and offer to pitch in to help, offer to say, could I buy you an iced coffee and just get 10 minutes of your time to hear about what you do? No one will say no to that. Make more connects. The more connects you make at your internship, the more opportunities you will have, and the less boring it will be. And if you do have free time, you can always do, digital volunteering for a campaign that matters to you.
Oh, there you go. The campaign.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you got to make sure that conforms with company policy.
Exactly. Don't do it on a company computer.
Yeah. So I will say, if you're bored at work, don't tell anyone. You shouldn't tell anyone that. You should, like you said, I think you gave really good advice. Find ways to be productive. I mean, remember, the most important thing is like that you're there. Okay,
yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Do no harm as an intern. Don't annoy the people you're working for.
Right. So like, first, be thankful that you're there. B, second, don't piss anyone off by saying,
Yeah.
hey, I'm bored. What should I do? So instead, I think you gave really good advice. Find ways to be productive. So certainly, reaching out to people who do something interesting that you're interested in and saying, hey, is there some time available in your calendar for us to get coffee or lunch? And I'd
Make
love
it
to
easier.
learn.
No, 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 no. I think people are busy. Make it as easy as possible. Say, can I buy you an iced coffee and sit with you in your office for 10 minutes? Or
What
can
if
we
they're a
walk
hot
around the
coffee
block?
person? What if they're a
Whatever
hot
it
coffee
is,
person?
make it as easy as possible for them to say yes to.
Okay.
Don't just
Fine.
say, we go to lunch.
Okay, and you shouldn't be forward about asking for lunch. I think asking for coffee is good. Can I take you to get a cup of coffee and learn more about what you do, because it seems really interesting to me. So set up a couple of those meetings. I would say also like target people who are more junior. Don't
Yeah.
go for the top, just so like they
Great.
they might be more willing to do
That
it,
is
more
great
available.
advice.
So that's one thing. Second thing is, I would, to the extent you have a boss or like someone you're reporting to, I think it's worth going to them and saying, hey, is there anything I could do to help make your job easier this week?
If there it is at all possible for you to say, I see how much time this takes for you every week. I see that this is a big project coming up. Here's how I could help with this, or can I help with this specific thing? Find a way to do that. Try not to just actually go to your boss and say, can I help you with anything? It's more like, hey, I know we have this big event coming up. Is there any way I can like pitch in with audience development? Hey, I know like this, I heard about this in the meeting. I thought it was so interesting. I would love to like jump in and help with this part. Also, remember, you're young, so everyone thinks you know digital. So there is something you can volunteer to help with digitally, like say, I notice we don't have a Pinterest board for the company. Is that something that was ever of interest? Maybe I could help build. Find ways that you can be helpful and suggest them.
Right. I would also use the time to learn as much about the company and what they do as possible. So like follow, read reports, read articles about them, whatever's like recent that's being done. If you were in a meeting and given a deck that you didn't have time to read, maybe like read it, follow up on it.
Or any biographies that are important to the industry, read them.
Well, you don't want to be caught at your desk reading a book, but like looking at a computer, looking at research regarding the company, like I think that's all really productive. If someone's done something there that you think is interesting, maybe that even happened before your internship, like you could set up time to talk to them about it. Like, oh, I heard you were involved in this major deal. Can I
just look on LinkedIn and see who at the company went to your college, like played the same sport you play, like find a connection to be able to say, oh, I see you're a cyclist too. I'd love to connect.
Right. So like those are all suggestions.
Than it used to be when we were.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't take naps. Don't spend time on the phone. Like do
if that was
things
not
that
obvious,
are working.
Do not take a nap in the office on your internship. Yes. Don't take a nap.
And don't tell other interns you're bored. Don't tell anyone. Like just
don't
keep it to yourself.
Flat it to somebody. Don't DM it to someone.
Definitely not. Well, hopefully that helps, and hopefully it's useful. If anyone else has any tips, feel free to send them.
Yeah, let us know. All right, heroes and zeros.
Heroes and zeros. So what do we start with zeros? You want me to start?
Yeah, start with zeros. I thought of mine in case.
You thought of yours? Okay, good. Well, I would have to say my zero is this whole, I don't even know how to describe it anymore, the Mitch McConnell situation.
I think that picture was AI.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're a public servant in a very important role. Like, we deserve more information. If you have a serious health condition, like, let's have some, like, legitimate...
I thought Harris Fisher made that if there had been any way for him to release a verbal statement about his dear friend Lindsey Graham's passing, he would have. He did not.
Well, yeah, or if you're in that serious of a condition where you can't even talk for the foreseeable future or move, like, it's time to resign. I just... In any corporate setting, like, it's crazy to compare like politics to corporate settings because politics just seems to operate on this crazy rule set. But if that was a CEO of a public company, they would be replaced.
Yes.
Like at least temporarily by an interim person. And they would have
Really
greater accountability about their
into
condition.
perspective. Like they basically had a coup in the movie, Dave.
I mean, basically, like if you're on medical leave and your employer asks you for an update on your anticipated return date and you don't answer it, that could be a basis for firing you. Like you have an obligation under the law to answer those questions. We should have that level of transparency from elected officials. So I think it's very sad whatever's going on with him, but it's also very improper. You know, it doesn't serve
Very
the
much what happens
public
when
interests.
People are old, sadly.
Sure.
Yeah.
But so go deal with it and
Yeah.
let us have our government back.
And we should have safeguards for these things
Yeah.
because of the graying of our leadership. Anyway.
Different story. Who's your zero?
My zero is that people are afraid to eat lettuce right now in the Northeast. And I want to remind everybody
Not just in the Northeast, everywhere.
I
Michigan.
just want to remind everyone, lettuce that you buy at your local farm stand is not in danger of being infected. Lettuce from places like Satter Farms, which is a big independent organic farm near where I am right now on the east end of Long Island, they are not affected. They put a note out. This is a wonderful time to take advantage of your local green markets because they're safe.
Totally agree. I'm a big fan of local green markets, so that's
My favorite thing is to overspend at local green markets. Yeah.
all right.
All right.
So you have a hero?
My hero is, I'm going to give one to the legal system. E. Jean Carroll got paid. Congratulations to E. Jean Carroll, Robbie Kaplan, and that we still have a legal system that forced even Donald Trump to pay up a little bit. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean,
For those who are unaware,
escrow
E. Jean Carroll,
payment.
she got a payment of $5.9 million this week.
Yeah, and the money was in escrow, so it was just released.
Yes.
So I guess that means she wasn't paid in $1 Trump coins
right.
that are being issued.
So,
that
you know
no
what?
one asked for.
The system is messy, as we have talked about a lot on this episode, but that was a win for the good guys.
Yeah.
And you, Peter?
My hero of the week is Demis Hassabis, who is
I'm assuming this is someone that plays soccer.
Nope.
Oh.
Quite the opposite. The co-founder and CEO of Google DeepMind, who wrote a piece this week about arguing for the creation of an AI standards body, like a public-private type
Like an
body,
FTC for AI?
like a FINRA for, we talked about FINRA last week, like a FINRA for AI, basically to evaluate new models, new releases, and give them designations. And coming from someone in the industry, that's pretty brave, and I think it takes a lot of guts to do that. So kudos to him, and he's receiving a lot of praise for it. Of course, we'll find a way for this administration
Where was the op-ed?
It was on his Substack.
Okay. So we'll put a link to it in the episode.
Notes.
Notes.
Yeah.
All right. That was good.
All right. Great.
All right. Peter, have a great weekend.
Thanks. I'll go back to being, happy and then sad about the World Cup ending, and you can
go back to focusing on
buying your lettuce at your local farm stand.
Exactly.
And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to Across the Bar. Thank you, Sadie, for producing.
Thank you, Sadie.
And we'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye.